Alright guys, big update for Wuthering Waves in today's video. We have the full pre-release kit info for the upcoming 2.6 banner characters. In the last one, we took a look at the Augusta full kit, and for today, we'll be doing a full kit breakdown on Yuno. Yuno is an incoming 5-star character set to come out in the second phase of the 2.6 version update. She's also looking like quite the character, acting as a support that can not only keep your team alive, but also buff them and deal amazing damage herself using her ultimate. And to also mention, her gameplay looks quite amazing. So let's see what Yuno is all about in this video, and also if you guys want to be kept updated on everything about Wuthering Waves, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and put those notifications on. This will help you guys be updated right away whenever we have any more news and updates 24/7 right here on the channel. But alright, let's get right into it. We have a lot of kit details to go into. One thing I do want to mention is this is still pre-release kit, and we could see some changes on the kit down the line, especially in the next few weeks. They do like to change the multipliers or do a bunch of changes to the kits because they are currently being tested, but still, let's see what Yuno is all about. Alright, pulling up the kit here, we have Yuno confirmed as a Arrow Gauntlet character with the role of a support. We also have a look at her Ascension materials and talent level up materials, but only a few of these materials are available as of now, and the rest will be available once the 2.6 update location comes out. Alright, next up is the combo tutorial. So we have a small combo tutorial section here to explain how the character will play. It seems a lot shorter compared to Augusta, so let's see what it is. When Yuno is in Lunar Cycle, Half Moon attacks recover Forte gauge on hit. When Yuno is in the Lunar Cycle New Moon, casting Moonbow basic attack, resistance skill, and dodge counter consumes the Forte gauge, and when crystal energy is full, she can cast heavy attack, absolute fullness. And yeah, she basically can switch modes between Half Moon and New Moon. When in Lunar Cycle, press jump button and summon Full Moon domain when the energy is full. So yeah, we saw that with both of these characters. Augusta basically has a domain effect where she summons the sun and gives buffs to your whole team, and now it seems Yuno has the same thing where she does summon the moon in the actual map, and this should also provide buffs to the whole team. So very excited to go through the kit here. Let's move on to the normal attack. Normal attack, pretty standard for consecutive attacks dealing arrow damage. Then she has a special dodge for the moon ring called Moon Ring Dodge Counter. So when she on the Moon Ring, I believe that's when she's in the state of floating in the air, she obtains a special dodge counter. And then we have Moon Ring Basic Attack. Yuno will enter Lunar Cycle New Moon by casting Heavy Attack Flux Moon Ring. When in this state, Yuno will attack with Moonbow, performing up to 3 consecutive attacks dealing arrow damage. And it is considered resistance aberration damage, that is what she will scale on the most. And now for what is the Lunar Cycle? As we saw, Yuno can switch between modes called Half Moon and New Moon. Half Moon attacks recover Forte gauge on hit, and New Moon basic attack resistance skill dodge counter consume Forte gauge to increase the skill's damage multiplier. So yeah, I think this is pretty much Half Moon is her starting state on the ground, and then the New Moon is when she's in the air and all of her attacks are gonna get buffed. So yeah, there's also Moonbow dodge counter, which is the dodge counter she gets when she's in the air. So with the Moonbow dealing arrow damage, considered resistance aberration damage. Alright, now moving on to the resonance skill. Resonance skill has quite a lot here, so basically just deals arrow damage, but there's a few parts to it. So there's closing refrain when Yuno is not a Lunar Cycle, casting Moon Ring basic attack stage 3 intro skill Pulse of Origins, replace Yuno resonance skill with closing refrain for 5 seconds. Casting closing refrain unleashes a flurry of strikes dealing arrow damage and activates the Lunar Cycle state. Then we have the unfinished refrain when she's in the Half Moon state, which is the starter state. Her resonance skill is replaced by unfinished refrain. Casting unfinished refrain deals arrow damage. Then we also have Arc Beyond the Edge when she's in the New Moon state, which is the her enhanced state. Her resonance skill is replaced with Arc Beyond the Edge, which also has 2 initial charges. Casting Arc Beyond the Edge causes Yuno to shift positions and deal arrow damage, considered resistance liberation damage. Now additionally, if Yuno is hit or launched into midair, casting Arc Beyond the Edge immediately frees her from the interruption. That could be pretty useful if you time it correctly. Then we have the Forte circuit. Let's go to the Forte circuit and see what it is. It's quite long, possibly one of the longest I've ever seen. so I'll try to go through this as fast as possible. So the Forte circuit basically explains the lunar cycle effect. Yuno can activate the lunar cycle state by casting Resonant Skill, Closing Refrain, or Resonant Separation. Lunar cycle has two states, there's half moon and new moon. By default, Yuno enters the half moon state. When activating lunar cycle, she can then switch between the two states by casting Heavy Attack Flux. When in lunar cycle, Yuno jump is replaced with Heavy Attack Flux. Stamina will not recover when Yuno is midair during this state, and for her movement, it will also become meandering in this state, and she will also consume stamina continuously. Now we have for the actual description of the half moon, Yuno attacks using the moon ring, restoring sentience on hit, and this effect is Yuno can hold up to 100 points of sentience, casting intro skill restores 40, resonant separation restores 60, and casting the resonant skills restores 20 points each. When Yuno is in lunar cycle half moon, basic attack, dodge, counter, midair, restores sentience on hit. So basically another way to fill up one of the Forte gauges. And then here we'll also have the description for the new moon lunar cycle. Yuno attacks using the moon bow, casting moon bow, basic attack, resonant skill, arc beyond the edge, or moon bow, dodge, counter, consume sentience to increase the skill's damage multiplier. So yeah, I'm starting to see the rotation here. Basically in the half moon, the ground state, you build up sentience, you build up the gauge, and then once the gauge is full, you want to switch modes to the lunar cycle new moon to then use the rest of your attacks and consume the gauge and increase the skill's damage. And this is also going to be all considered resonance liberation damage. Alright, next up we have Heavy Attack Absolute Fullness. When Yuno considerable energy is full, her heavy attack is replaced by Absolute Fullness. Casting Absolute Fullness deals arrow damage to nearby enemies, considered resonance liberation, and heals nearby resonators in the team. There we go, finally we see what she actually does as a support. She's able to heal the team, and at the same time, that is when she conjures a full moon domain at her location. This effect can trigger once every 25 seconds. Now what is the full moon domain? Resonators inside the domain periodically regain HP and stamina. Gaining a shield inside the domain grants one additional stack of Blessing of the Wand Light. This effect can be triggered once every 0.5 seconds. So what was actually true? She indeed does restore stamina to your team, which I did not expect, but kind of makes sense as her gameplay is very stamina focused when she's in the air. So maybe she's going to be buffing herself, which will allow her to stay in the air a lot longer, as well as giving stamina and HP to your teammates. And additionally, they will gain a shield, which gives the stack of Blessing of the Wand Light, which is the receiving resonator gains 4% damage amplification for 10 seconds, stacking up to 10 times, gaining new stacks, reset the duration. This effect can end early if the receiving resonator is switched off the field. So one resonator can get this buff, which will be up to 40% damage amplification. Just for fun, that is pretty insane. So yeah, she actually does give stamina. I really did not expect this to go to launch, but it seems that she will indeed give stamina to your teammates, which is the first in the game for a character to do. So quite impressive. And then here we also saw this before, how she gains the Forte gauge, the sentience can hold up to 100 points. Alright, we're almost at the end. Let's go move over to the inherent skills. Let's see what else she does. So the inherent skill, every time Yuno casts basic attack, resonant skill, resonance liberation, and or intro skill, she gains one shield equal to 32% of her attack for 15 seconds. This shield will not be inherited by the incoming resonator, so only for herself. And then we have the other inherent skill. When Yuno casts intro skill or resonance liberation, she immediately gains 5 stacks of Blessing of the Wand Light, which we saw is 4% damage per stack. And all you need to do to gain these stacks very easily is do the intro skill and then your resonance liberation right after, and then for 10 stacks you'll have the 40% damage amplification. So very easy to do. Then we have her resonance liberation, deals arrow damage, and activate the lunar cycle state. Oh yeah, and to also mention, the stat bonuses in her kit are going to be attack and crit rate all around. Alright, now for the outro skill, one of the highlights of her kit that we previously saw. Now attack the target to deal 100% arrow damage, and now the incoming resonator gains 50% heavy attack damage amplification for 14 seconds. This effect ends early if they are switched off the field. 50% is pretty insane. As I said before, this is going to be really good for characters like Augusta. She is heavy attack focused, and even a character like Gian can make really good use of Yuno. So 50% is pretty insane for heavy attack damage bonus, on top of already everything else she does with the 40% damage amplification, the shielding, the healing, giving stamina. This character sounds pretty insane, possibly one of the best supports that we've ever gotten in the game. Now, is she a direct replacement to Shorekeeper? Most likely not, because Shorekeeper is pretty good for different reasons. She provides attack, crit rate, crit damage to the whole team. But it's fine as we still need two teams. Yuno can go on one side and Shorekeeper can go on the other side. So with the release of Yuno, we finally have two premium top tier supports in the game. Alright, so we saw most of what Yuno is capable of providing. She looks like quite the broken character. But we still have one more thing left to cover, and it's the Resonance Chain. I'm going to try to go over this as fast as possible, as I don't want to make the video too long. So the Resonance Chain, R1, is when Yuno is in the lunar cycle, her attack increases by 40%, and she will also gain immune to interruption when casting all of these skills. Then we have the R2, Resonators having 10 stacks, gain additional 40% damage amplification. That is pretty insane. Up to 80% damage amplification. Now we have when Yuno is in lunar cycle, damage dealt by Moonbow, basic attack, and all the following skills, amplified by 65%. And then we have the R4, heavy attack, absolute fullness, grants a shield equal to 480% of Yuno attack. It lasts for 30 seconds and can be inherited by the incoming Resonator. And then we have the R5, Yuno gains 20% liberation damage bonus. And lastly, the R6, damage multiplier of heavy attack, absolute fulfillment is increased by 1,600%. Just why not? 1,600 for the R6. Might as well make it broken just for fun because it's the R6. It's quite costly, but I'm sure it could be fun to see the huge damage multipliers of this one. But yeah, guys, went over the full kit for Yuno. That was quite a long kit, even longer than Augusta. But Yuno definitely brings a lot with all the support she provides, shielding, healing, passive HP regeneration, passive stamina regeneration for your teammates, 40% damage amplification, and from the looks of it, she will do amazing damage herself. So if you made it this far in the video, appreciate you guys. Feel free to like the video, subscribe, put those notifications on. I will keep you guys updated with all the latest news. Tomorrow's video is going to be quite the big one, so stay tuned for that. But until then, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.